Welcome everyone to our weekly mastery series, Access Your Inalienable Sovereignty in 2021. We're here with you every Friday. Same amazing channel, same hopefully convenient time. Excited to have you with us, and also really honored to have Eva Medilek joining us as our guest today. And I'd just like to introduce her to you. She's a certified high performance coach, international speaker, and author. She's coached both men and women in the areas of personal development, leadership, and mastering habits for success in their personal and professional lives. She specializes in helping busy professionals have more money, time, and success without sacrificing health, well-being, and relationships in the process. She uses her personal experience along with her leadership, relationship, and high performance training to teach you how to have it all without sacrificing it all. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you, Amanda. So nice to be here with you all. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, we've been having some really beautiful conversations about inalienable sovereignty. It seems particularly relevant these days. And I'm excited to dive in with you and curious, what does inalienable sovereignty mean to you?
That's a really good question. I like to think of it as really in a space of authenticity and having a voice and learning how to express yourself fearlessly and courageously in alignment with your priorities and your values. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I can imagine expressing oneself authentically means different things to different people based on their circumstances. And I've been listening to you talk about the intimacy of race on Facebook here, and I think that there's something very connected with that, and I would love for you to share just a little bit about those conversations that you're having and sharing with the community.
Yes, I would love to share that. It's funny because, I was thinking about that a lot today. And when it comes to, people of historically oppressed communities and minoritized individuals, the talk is, to give people a seat at the table. And, having a seat at the table is a lot different when you have a voice at the table and your voice has the space and grace that's needed to be heard. And so when you talk about authenticity, I feel a level of safety is needed in the spaces that are created at the table, so to speak, at the metaphorical table, so that the judgment is off the table. Because there was something that I posted the other day, and was an article about Juneteenth, and from the perspective of a Black woman, and she was really, I don't want to paraphrase because I'll get this wrong, but she really was talking about how we've been celebrating Juneteenth for many years, and so cautioning people who are not Black or white and white presenting not to come in and kind of hijack that holiday from it. And so I posted it in my Facebook group, The Intimacy of Race. And it was interesting to hear to read the reactions. She sounded hostile, she didn't make it safe for white people. And it seems like she's beating up white people, which is all interesting and valid feelings. But so often, our feelings keep us from being in alignment, to having our actions in alignment. And so, we really have to take our feelings out of it and come from a higher place of what is the next actionable step of integrity if we are all wanting to be, have an impact in
Mhm.
creating safe spaces.
Oh,
And so it's really powerful when you think about, yes, we can be at the table, and so often we have been at the table, but afraid to speak up,
mhm,
afraid of offending
mhm,
people who don't look like us or don't have the same shared experiences of us. And
mhm.
so we may be there listening, but may not be in full contribution
Yeah,
because of the lack of safe space
yeah.
that is at the table for us. I
Yeah.
don't know, did any of that make any
It
sense?
all makes perfect sense and lands really well when, when I was tuning into Juneteenth and, how to honor it, I just really felt like no white person should be celebrating.
Mm,
White people should be, because there's plenty to celebrate and there's just so much work to be done, and no white person should be taking the day off to celebrate Juneteenth. It is like you are on duty, we are on duty, and yes, honor and celebrate what has happened so far.
mhm.
And we should be throwing a party for Black people, and that's maybe a good beginning.
Well, you know what's interesting about the different reactions and perspective, even within the Black community around Juneteenth, and I've got to be completely honest, it wasn't traditionally celebrated
Mhm.
in my family
Mm,
or in my community. And it wasn't until I moved to California that I even heard of it. And I
mm,
thought, oh, is that just a fancy way of saying June 13th? And what's this about? And I saw the celebrations, especially in the Bay Area and Oakland in particular, not fully understanding and not making it a priority of mine at that time to understand it until, last year's resurgence of Black Lives Matter and the very public execution of George Floyd. And so that's when I learned about it, because
mm,
honestly, I grew up in the same, I grew up in America. So I had the same history
yeah,
lessons and the same
yeah,
history teachers and what I was exposed to. And, my father, who is in his late 80s, I don't think he knew much about it either, because it just wasn't prevalent where I lived and grew up. And, there are people of color who don't want to celebrate that because of the significant, like literally a full 2 years
yeah,
after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and
yeah,
just how hard it was to enforce that decree
yeah,
to free the enslaved people. I mean, it really took the troops to come
yeah.
in and force people to. So, is it really a celebration? Were we really free, or did we just find out that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed? So there's a
Mhm.
lot of energy and emotion around
Yeah,
that. But I think for me, and I'm just sharing my opinion, the learning of the history is what comes out of that for me. And,
mhm.
there's a lot of conversation about, you know, oh gosh, I'm losing my words here, but around teaching the true history
Yeah.
of the enslaved people in the United States and in schools. And it was funny. I wanted to show you this. This is interesting. This is a map of all of the hate groups in the
Mm,
United States.
mm,
There are 838 active hate groups, whether they're Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, 128 of those, racist skinheads, neo-Confederate, anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Muslim, and just general hate.
mm.
And it shows you how many are in your state, what types they are. And so we've got to interrupt the hate.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to heal. We have to do a lot of healing. I've been tuning in, like I said, when I was tuning in to Juneteenth, I'm like, it feels like there's just a lot of grieving that needs to be done. And we seem to be just in general a culture that makes it very easy to not grieve and easy to get distracted. And I think for me as a white woman, tuning into what I can do personally and how I can help. It's like we have to be willing to feel the hard feelings of remorse, guilt, shame, all of it, because we're all carrying forward our ancestors' unmetabolized emotions and thought processes that are diseased. To me, they seem, they are not healthy. They are not life-giving. And anything that's in the body that's not life-giving is considered a disease. And we are, we look at externally as well, like people that are lost in destruction and hate. There's disease there. And for me, just from the teachings that I've had growing up, well, not growing up, but being initiated into more shamanic and indigenous mind ways of seeing things, we're not grieving. We're not sitting with these experiences, and we're not taking care of the ancestral karmas that have been passed forward. And so that to me is where white fragility comes from, is this overwhelm that we can sense, and it's horrifying. And so when it gets pushed on, it's like, wow, there's just generations to not be punished for, but take accountability for. And it feels debilitating. And so there's a lot of running away from it. And the true work, I think, that I need to do and white people need to do is to learn how to be in grief and still show up in a good way, have all of our hard feelings and show up in a good way anyway. That for me is what sovereignty is about, is taking full accountability, having all the feels, being real, and still showing up in a good way to make things better, instead of, I didn't do this. It wasn't me. I didn't do that thing.
It really is, what is the lesson learned from the path our previous generations have left for us? That, often a lot of the work that I do with my clients is really to go back and look at that relationship foundational history that actually created our habits, patterns, beliefs, and behaviors. And, I remember when I went through the work myself, and, you go through, like, who were the role models, who had the biggest influence on you? And for most of us, it's our parents in one way or another. But, there could be good influences and bad influences. And you look at the tools that they were working with, really look at the tools that people were working with, and take away the shame, blame, and guilt, because that never forwarded anything. But you have an opportunity to have the upgraded latest tools and equipment and devices in your toolbox, so that you can be better and do better, so that we can all have better. And what can we learn? Your parents, your generations used a handsaw for everything. Well, now you've got the latest and greatest power tools, so you can get things done better and faster and more efficiently, and it looks better. And so just look at even the emotional tools. We have so many support systems out there to help us move past shame, blame, and guilt and into committed action, because those feelings are keeping us from action. And we really need to be in action to what's in our hearts and what's in our intention, and not let our feelings get in the way of that.
Yeah, a ho to all that. I completely resonate. Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, for me, inalienable sovereignty is taking full 100% accountability for what I'm creating in my reality, not just the things that are consistent with my conscious beliefs, but everything that's showing up. Like, if I'm truly sovereign, then I have to recognize I am the creator of my reality, and everything that came before is still a part of it. And it's, as someone who wants to show up in a good way in that inalienable sovereignty and, be a force for good, I have to be committed to making the circumstances I show up in better. For me, that's, compassionate, healing. Do people feel safe? The mission of the nonprofit that I founded is to create safe and sacred spaces for our diverse community to learn, heal, and grow together. And that was long before these, just over the past couple of years, these conversations, thankfully, have come to the forefront of how to make safe and sacred space for people of color, and specifically Black people who, are here in this country through some really fucked up means. And how do we take accountability for that and do the work to make it safe? And there are a lot of blind spots for sure. I know I have them still, and to be committed to to that, because if we're not, even if you just want to be selfish about it, our future as humans relies upon us bringing our brilliance together for good.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I'm, hosting my workshop tomorrow, and it's really, that we can all be high performers.
Yeah.
And part of being a high performer is not being a high-powered executive. It really is consistently creating higher levels of success in your life and business while maintaining healthy life, healthy body, full of healthy, happy relationships, and having that cultural and inclusive intelligence needed to create these safe spaces, but not only, but to make a difference. I mean, when you look at the wealth gap between Black families and white families on average in the United States, it's like a 70%, difference in the wealth gap. And so what can you do? So, all right, you're not out there marching, you're not going to rallies, and you're not, volunteering, but what can you do as a person who is, number one, has their heart and intentions, hopefully, in a space of unity and inclusiveness, but that is an addition to what you're already creating in your life. So what are some of the actions you can do? How can you create a voice at the table? How can you uplift? Because one thing about the Black community, it is incredibly resilient and has a high level of endurance in spite of everything that has gone on in our ancestry and our generations and the history of our existence. As Maya Angelou famously said, still we rise, still we rise. I mean, having that level of resilience in your communities, in your life, integrate it in your friendships, in your family dynamic, as a part of your teams for your businesses. Imagine how much more successful you'll be when you bring that level of talent into your life.
Superpowers.
Yeah, it is.
Superpowers. Honestly.
Yeah. And most people really think that they are required to do so much, which, it's almost like a race. The rabbit goes really fast and then poops out before the end of the race. And, one of the advantages that we have over, the really fast jungle animals like a cheetah or an antelope is our ability to sweat so that we can cool our bodies. I mean, we could really outpace cheetahs and antelopes because they'll poop out and they'll need to stop, when we have that ability to run marathons and keep going because we can cool off. And so you've got to think of this as a marathon, not a sprint. And so what can you do to stack and be consistent? What social media power do you have to, like, look what I saw, this amazing company. Like, I had somebody on my summit last week who started a nail polish company with her 3-year-old daughter, her 4-year-old daughter. And the nail polish is for girls with empowering statements. The nail kits are with empowering statements for young girls so that they can do their own little manicures at home. And this is started by a Black mother and her 4-year-old daughter, and just, so how can we give voice to people like that? Like, look what I found, and give them introduced them to people that could forward their careers so that we start to have that economic equality as well. Yeah, there's so much we can do that
Um,
is going to be an addition to our lives and
mm,
not a subtraction. Most of us would think, I am already so busy. I don't have time. I can't do much more. And, I'm tired of having the conversation. What could I do to move forward? Well, what the main part of the workshop I'm doing tomorrow is how do we move forward? Yes, the conversations are uncomfortable and they always will be. How can you really take actions that are aligned with your values around this
mm.
subject?
Oh, oh, I feel like I work a lot with the subconscious, and one of the quickest hacks out of subconscious programming, which we've all fallen into, the way that the systems that we have to interact with. And like for me, asking a question helps to break out of, the mental algorithms, because it's like, what is possible? And I was just feeling like, asking, instead of telling ourselves how overwhelmed we are and we just don't have any more, and to be curious, like, how can I be of service today?
Hmm. Yeah. Ask,
What am I
what
going to
do you
be in
need?
service to?
Yeah. What do you need? If you know someone who is a coach or consultant or a business owner, how can I support you? What do you need? What could I do, you know, to help, if any, or what would make things better or help move you forward? And it's really asking the open-ended questions, not the why. Because why automatically puts us in a defense to
Yeah.
defend our reasoning behind it. But like, what would make this better? What would you
Uh-huh.
like to see? What would you like to hear? And being open to listening. And when
Mhm.
you do listen, be fully present to the listening, because we all, conflict starts when we don't feel seen, heard, and respected, you
Yeah.
know and that's really a lot of where conflict starts. So you listen intently, and then you restate, you mirror back, you know acknowledge, that sounds like it may be difficult for you. This is what I hear you're saying, and repeat that back so that the person feels heard and acknowledged. And then ask, what do you think needs to happen? What's the
Mhm.
next logical step for a solution? And have those solution based questions.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. And listen to understand, instead of listening while figuring out a bunch of arguments against it, which was the family I was brought up in.
Yeah. That certainly takes you out of being present when you're listening to respond.
Yeah.
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 To
And then
defend.
you don't even have to listen to agree, but to listen. For me, in relationships, whether it's partnership or conversations, difficult conversations, or of any kind with any person, I feel like one of the foundations is to not only come in to listen, to understand, but to understand through the heart of compassion, to really understand from the heart level, to really see that person, um, and the goodness in their heart, because I feel like most people have really great intentions, and the way that they come forth, we just don't see, understand, and the way that they share isn't always fully aware of how they're showing up. And when we can listen to someone with the heart of compassion,
Mhm.
then it's, for me, it's like this generosity that we show up with, to give someone the benefit of the doubt.
Mm.
And I've actually found that anytime I'm making up a negative interpretation of what somebody's saying or doing, it's always just my mental bullshit that's getting in the way. And so to try to justify or defend it is just so silly. It's like, why would I justify staying stuck in some hard situation when I can, allow compassion to bring in this possibility? And most of the time, that compassionate frame of mind is genuinely what's been going on behind the
You know,
scenes.
that's exactly why I started the Facebook group, The Intimacy of Race, because I was at a place where, first of all, after witnessing that horrible execution of George Floyd, I was in such a state. I never experienced ancestral grief in my
Mm,
life. And it really surprised me. It knocked me for a loop. I was just like, I am, tend to be pretty stoic in most cases, unless there's a puppy video, and that's another story. And then I'm like a puddle. But, unfortunately, as a woman of color, we start to be a person of color, I should say. Sometimes we become numb to some of the events that are clearly not justified and unfairly proportionate. The punishment rarely fits the crime, but there was something about that broke me inside. And I was launching my group program at the time, and I just didn't want to. I was just like, I can't go back to business as usual. Of course, I fulfilled on the group program, but I needed to do more. And it's COVID. I'm a natural born germaphobe, so what can I do? And I was just in meditation morning after morning after morning, really hoping for an answer to wanting to do something. And I realized what came to me was all of the well-meaning white friends on Facebook were saying shit like, all lives matter. God sees everyone the same. I treat everyone the same. I was raised to treat everyone the same, missing the point. Like, if I'm doing a breast cancer fundraiser, don't come yelling at me about lung cancer. It doesn't make it any less valid. But I may be suffering with breast cancer right now, so I need to do a fundraiser for this. And I don't want to put anything negative out in the air about cancer. But my point in sharing that was, what came to me was, I saw the heart and I saw the intention, even though
good on you.
the feet were being put in their mouth big time. And it was just for, lack of knowledge, sensitivity, ingrained habits, patterns, beliefs, and really wanting to help, but not knowing how. And then you see the criticism that came after people, the shutting down, the canceling. And then you have the opposite happening. Everybody is scared. Listen to me, I'm like 6 again. Everybody afraid, afraid to say anything for fear of being shut down, for fear of the criticism. And so when I started the Intimacy of Race, it really had the intention of creating a safe space, for resources, not that I wanted to take on the emotional labor of teaching, but to share resources so that you have resources to help you increase your knowledge and awareness around this experience for people of color, and to share without being criticized. Like, you may say, yeah, but I believe all lives matter. Well, here's why that's offensive to what's going on right now. And just to have that safe space, like, I had people like, you're an idiot, that's why you're da. You're like, no, nobody has ever come together being shamed, blamed, and guilted for what they believe at the time. And we all have the opportunity to grow and evolve into a better understanding. It's for everybody, and it's not going to happen overnight, because we didn't get here overnight. So that's where we need the patience and the space to grow. And so, as you were sharing that, I was remembering what was in my heart and seeing the intention of people. And my husband is a blonde hair, blue-eyed German, and so I was just like, I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth, and how we're going to go to bed tonight. And to his credit, he just held me. He didn't say it's not a big deal, it's going to be all right, because that would have been the last thing I needed to hear, and he would have lost teeth. But and I say that in jest, but for him to just hold space for me really just up leveled, like, wow, he does pay attention to me and my coaching, so he gets it, and my love language. And he held space for me to process, to grieve, to be in confusion, and it was just beautiful. And that's, that was a lesson that we all get to learn. Sometimes we just need to hold the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're sharing, and what you're speaking to is something that I've been witnessing with so much joy in my heart. Women of color, you like really bringing the holistic approach to this, like really attending to the whole person. And I feel like that's everybody who's interested in bridging the gap and bringing diversity, equality, and inclusivity in, the best, safest route is to bring that holistic approach. Because if we're not attending to the places inside of us that are angry, hurt, then we even unconsciously bring that hurt into our circumstances. And that's what we need to stop. And so I hear like self-care, being able to, renew, replenish, really resource ourselves, no matter where we fall on the color spectrum. If we're showing up to this work, we have to be doing self-care and bring that our whole selves to the experience.
No, I definitely hear you on that. And there's been an uptick in the self-care because, the work can be triggering, and it's emotional labor that people of color who have stepped into the space are experiencing on a daily basis. And the only way to keep going is to, refresh, have those routines to reset, replenish, refresh, and give ourselves processing time as well to, one thing I've learned is not to have those knee-jerk reactions, which I wish the entire country would learn. Why don't you just sit with it for a minute, process it, see what's coming up for you, ask yourself why this is coming up, look what's under the under before lashing out and reacting. I have this formula that I live by. It's S plus R equals R. You've got a situation, and depending upon that middle R that you add to it, whether you react or you respond responsibly, that's where your choice is. And that will equal the other R, which is the results you get from that.
Oh, beautiful. I love that formula. That's great. And I just wanted to ask you, Kelsey, my assistant, who's amazing, said she would really love to learn more about your group, your Facebook group, and if you could provide that, and then we could also maybe share it with the rest of the community here, that would be great.
Yeah, it's the intimacy of race. I think I'm the only one. And yeah, I could, do you want a link? I'll send you a link and you can add it later.
Okay, beautiful. And I just want to open the floor to any pieces that are coming through for, I know you're doing a workshop tomorrow and you work with people, and I'm just curious about any tips, any wisdom that you'd like to share about this process of caring for ourselves and experiencing success without the sacrifice.
Well, the first thing is we need some clarity on what our priorities and values are, because most of us try to do too much. We try to do it all and be it all so that we can have it all. And, structuring our day, our week, our month, a quarter, our year, so that we can take care of our priorities first. This is the mindset of a high performer. Get clear on what those priorities are and your values, and then it makes decision making easy. And decision, the root word is side, or to cut out. And so if something is not a priority of yours and it doesn't forward your vision and your values, you get to cut it out. And that's how we become more productive and effective as a high performer, which means setting boundaries. The word no has to be the N word that we do agree to use in life if it doesn't work off of your blueprint of priorities. And it doesn't have to, people think of no as being something harsh. But, I've said, what, I'm sorry, that's not aligned to what I'm doing right now, but here is someone else who might be better aligned for this for you. And so that's how you say no. It's not, and so if you've got a real people pleaser in you, you don't want to let people down and you want to be everything to everybody, that's going to put you in overwhelm and exhaustion. And then when you're not feeling your best, you can't show up as your best. So that is another thing that I would recommend people do. Be clear on what your priorities are, set up your boundaries, and then minimize the distractions and stay focused. So, work in creation before consumption.
Wow.
And what that means is, we're all stuck to our email and our text, but create what needs to go out first for your priorities of the day. And then you can respond to everyone else's priority. Because
Nice.
60% of your day should be on your priorities.
Oh,
And the rest for
love
everyone
it.
else. Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything else? I'm loving. I'm like, oh, let's just do the workshop right now.
You know what? If you go to evamedilek.com / I think it's HPW, High Performance Workshop, you can sign up for the workshop. I will send out a recording to anybody who can't
Oh,
be there
beautiful.
live and get the training. But, full disclosure, there is a $37 donation attached to that for the Equal Justice Initiative. So,
Beautiful. That seems like a no-brainer.
yeah. So
Easy.
I just don't want to think like, oh, it's not free, I'm not going to do it. You know what?
It's better than free. You can do some good stuff with your money.
Yeah, it's a both and. It's a both and. So it's just, my name, evamedilek.com / HPW. And so I'm so excited about this workshop because it really is going to show you things that you may not have thought of that you could do that will not only work for the togetherness of inclusivity, but also create better success in your life as well.
Beautiful. I love it. I feel very nourished by this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you showing up. I know that you had other things on your mind right before we stepped in, and I really appreciate you and the deep compassion that you're bringing, not just to yourself, but to white folks and the really clumsy, long waking up that we're doing. God help us. We really need, like, without that compassion, it just makes it harder, that shame and that all that. And having that compassion, like, we're waiting for you to wake the fuck up and we're still here waiting to be in the conversation. Like, that's incredibly kind, honestly. Yeah. So thank you so much, my dear. I'm excited. I can't attend live tomorrow, but I definitely intend on signing up and tuning in when the recording comes out. I hope everybody that gets to see this also can tune in and stay on the journey with you. I know you have a free gift. I put it in the chat for Kelsey. If you could add it as one of the first comments in there, add it to the comments in Inalienable Sovereignty. If you could share a little bit about your gift.
That gift is to really, it's the essential pillars of high performance. And what that does is helps us stay on track, for lack of a better word, so that we can stay focused and on point with what we want to create. It helps us create clarity, have the energy and the courage to be productive and move forward in our goals, in our life and our business. So it really is some powerful questions to ask yourself to bring that clarity forth, because I work with a lot of people who's like, well, I'm not sure what I should do, how I should do it. And clarity seems to be, it's always been a struggle for me, even just weaving, social inclusivity into my high performance work. Like, how do I do this? How do I not alienate people? And just like, I had to give up alienating people and really just know that this work is something that I just can't come and go as I please and have money be the ultimate goal. My life and the life of my children and future grandchildren, if they have children, hint, hint, is at stake here. I'm not going to be one of those mothers that say, when am I going to get grandchildren? I promise. But, my point is, I don't have the privilege of being Black when it's convenient. This is who it is for me. And so, yeah, clarity is a huge, huge piece of deciding where you want to put your time, energy, and effort in. So this will help with that.
Beautiful. I love it so much. Kelsey, were you able to get that link? Did you see it? Awesome. So it's in the comments. Please sign up, stay on the journey with this fine woman. She just brings so much heart and wisdom and caring to the table. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to connect with you a little bit deeper. We've been in community for a long time and it's been great. We haven't really quite dropped in like this before. So I'm really grateful. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and hopefully stay connected. And want to give any last bits before we close out, my dear?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And please, if anybody wants to reach out to me to know how to take this conversation and their intention further, you can just go to talkwitheva.com, and I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone in your group who is curious about what they can do to make a difference in their high performance and social inclusivity intelligence. Ooh.
Thank you. And I just want to send the invitation for all of you. Please, if you feel inspired by the conversations we're having, please invite other people to these conversations, to our Inalienable Sovereignty group on Facebook, to join in. And you can, there's information on there to be able to join us live on Zoom, so you can actually ask questions, things that pique your interest. Some of the questions that come through, especially from Kelsey, my lovely assistant, we've gone down some really great rabbit holes with those questions. So please weave your brilliance in with us. If you are finding that there's trauma, anxiety in your system that's overwhelming and making you go into survival mode instead of being able to show up in a helpful way, there's a free guided meditation for you on the nonprofit Living Wisdom Patreon page. It's called Emerging Through Crisis. It's free to you. There's also other great resources there for less than your daily latte. You can get some really great resources to support you in being able to be sovereign and be a safe person. I like to say, hurt people, and healing people heal people. So let's be healing people that are healing people, and help everyone access their inalienable sovereignty. Again, thank you so much for showing up. We'll be here live next week, same great station, same hopefully convenient time. And until next time, may the source be with you, everyone.